Welcome to God in Film, the podcast where a Christian and an atheist dive into the best that cinema has to offer and see if we can find any parallels with the gospel or any other Bible stories. I'm film critic and disillusioned archangel, Giles Gough.
I'm librarian and ruler of hell, Julia Hall.
And I'm editor and scrappy, brooding, alcoholic demon hunter, Claire Gough.
And to kick off season 9 of this lockdown project that got out of hand, we're looking at Supernatural, the TV series created by Eric Kripke following the lives of the Winchester brothers as they hunt demons, ghosts, monsters, and the occasional fallen angel. Supernatural has famously run for 15 seasons, making it damn near impossible to cover the whole thing in one episode. So, for the purposes of this episode today, we'll be looking purely at the first 5 seasons as it forms a clear, coherent story arc. But fear not, if we find out more to analyse, we'll just do another episode, much like we did with our Doctor Who or Thor episodes. Julia, I think this is probably one of the franchises that you're well acquainted with.
I've been in the trenches on Tumblr. I was there when Super Hulock was the big tag that all the kids were using. So yeah, I've done some time with this fandom.
I have only seen the first 5 seasons, so please no spoilers.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen probably season 6 or 7. I kind of mainlined it all in one go back in around, I want to say 2013, something like that. And I knew that you'd like this, so I introduced you to this. I don't think I could have anticipated quite how much Mrs. Gough was going to love this show.
I feel like maybe you should have.
What is there not to love, to be honest? With
Yes.
Yeah. Hot guys.
Yes.
Hot guys. Hot cars.
Yeah. Great story.
And just great coats, though.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to say hot coats because I know how much you love a coat.
I could get that Dean's coat, and you know how good I'd look in it, you know. Although the weird thing is, like, I look at his outfits a lot of the time, and half the time I think he might be cosplaying as me, because there's definite crossover in these areas, you know.
Like my catnip is guys who have serious emotional issues and terrible lives. I don't know how I ended up in such a healthy relationship. I really do not.
The Dean single man tier we all know and love. Oh. You gotta love the single
Looking
man
up
tier.
at the sky, saying, "Help me, please," you know.
The chef's kiss.
Yeah, no, I did somehow miss this. I think I probably, for a long time, I would have been too scared to watch it because I am I can't do horror. I can't do horror in my brain. My imagination is terrifying enough as it is without adding any more into there. So I think I've avoided it for that reason. But no, I love it.
Yeah. I think it's time for some Julia's facts.
I've gone a little bit self-indulgent with this first fact because I need to point out that Dean Winchester and I have the same birthday.
Amazing.
Exact same birthday, which is also Kripke's wife's birthday, hence why it was picked. And Sam's birthday is May 2nd, 1983, which of course was decided when the show began in 2005, but in 2007 Eric Kripke's son was born also on May 2nd.
That's wild.
So May 2nd is like pretty much the same week as me. My birthday's April the 27th, so Sam is
pretty proximal.
Is just a few days younger than me, you know.
So that's my first one. We were talking about jackets, and actually I have a question to ask you, Giles, because so we know Dean's iconic leather jacket, which he wears over the first 5 seasons, kind of disappears in later seasons.
Don't tell me that. I'm not going to watch him now.
Because when they flew the wardrobe over from Vancouver to LA, it was stolen. With a few other items, including Castiel's iconic trench coat.
Wow.
So I'm just saying, where were you in 2010 when these things were being flown over? Do you have anything to declare?
That's exactly the kind of thing you would do anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not going to confirm nor
No,
deny.
nothing.
Okay, no,
I have nothing to
sensible.
say on the issue.
Sensible.
On the advice of my lawyers, they say I should say nothing.
It's very, very sensible. My third fact is in, I believe it's season 1, or it could be 2, I might be misremembering, there is a point where Dean gives out his cell number, for us English folks, that is his mobile phone number, which if you called around that time, it did actually send you to a voicemail of Dean giving an in-character message, which did also then evolve as the seasons went on, depending on kind of what had happened in the story. But unfortunately, the number doesn't appear to work anymore. One source I found suggested that it maybe now belonged to, we'll say, an establishment that Dean might frequent, possibly maybe if it was, a rough case. But other than that, no, it doesn't appear to be working anymore. But that was a fun Easter egg that you could actually get a voicemail from Dean Winchester, which 15-year-old me would have absolutely adored.
Yeah. I was going to say, who are the brave millennials that are calling a cell phone number?
I know, right? It could have gone anywhere. You could have... Craziness.
What maniac is calling an unknown number?
Oh, if you spent any more than like a day on Tumblr, it's filled with crazy people. It still is. They're my crazy people, but they are truly crazy, fearless people. The name for one of the characters who appeared in season 4 was actually found via a random Google search from Eric Kripke. So he wanted a new character name for an angel, and since they were airing the show on Thursdays, he googled Angel of Thursday and got back Castiel.
Oh, wow.
So specifically, apparently he's an Angel of Thursday. I'm not sure what the etymology is there. Not a lot of the pages I went to seem to go into depth on that. Maybe that's something we can talk about later. But Giles doesn't seem convinced.
I couldn't find anything on Castiel either. As best I can tell, it's not a. As best I can tell, it was a name that came from whole cloth from the show. I've not seen it referenced anywhere else. What about you?
No, I mean, people can make up anything about saints and stuff, so it's entirely possible that someone was just like, who's the Angel of Thursday? This guy.
This guy. It's like trying to Google who like the patron saint of the internet is and things like that. I love doing that because it'll just be some random, really tenuous link, but like it kind of makes sense because they didn't have internet when like saints were created, I guess.
No, but they do. They've had like there's wasn't there the first millennial saint now?
Yes. Really? Which, yeah, honestly, quite jarring. I kind of here for it though. My last little fact. So initially, Dean and Sam's last name was going to be Harrison, as a tribute to Harrison Ford, i.e. Han Solo. But a real-life Dean Harrison living in Kansas already existed. So the lawyers made Kripke change the last name, which he said came from the Winchester Mystery House, which is actually a fun little, if you like your kind of supernatural, urban legend kind of thing. So
it's in LA, isn't it? The Winchester Mystery House.
It is in San Jose, California.
The wife or the widow of Winchester, the rifle maker.
Yes. She
moves to LA at some point and she starts to feel haunted in the house that she's in. There was a film made about it a few years back.
Yes.
Is she really haunted, or is it just overcome with guilt of the fact that her husband has made a really efficient killing machine, you know?
Yeah, so her husband was the man behind the Winchester gun company. The repeating rifle was basically the gun that took the West. It allowed them to just completely obliterate. The law is that she felt so guilty and so haunted by the deaths that were caused by this rifle that she continued to build the house. Some legend says sort of by in the instruction of spirits, so she would hold seances and they would tell her what to build. Some stories say it was to basically keep the spirits confused and therefore away from her. But it's a very fun, interesting little. You can visit. Should you feel compelled to go to America, you can go and see the Winchester.
No, we're not
House.
in a rush. We're good. We're good.
Yeah. Just watch a house tour on YouTube. It's probably the same thing. And that is, that's the end of my little factoid.
Fantastic.
Julia?
Thank you so much. Now, unfortunately, Julia, you don't get to have a rest at this point because we have a guest on that you managed to find and interview yourself, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I did think that she would emerge from the woodwork as soon as she knew we were doing this episode. With your permission, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Laura Jayne Hunt, and I'm an actor, a writer, an activist, and a part-time drag queen. My pronouns are she, they. I've been a fan of Supernatural since I was 18 years old, which is crazy because I'm like 29 now. And I have recently gotten back into it, and I have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I can attest that you are. So I was there, Gandalf.
You were there. You were part of the reason.
So
it was your fault.
Lots of things are my fault. So can you tell me a little bit about how Supernatural kind of came to be as a show? So like, where did it start?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because I went down the rabbit hole. I did a Sam Winchester, and I did my
amazing.
Research. You know, get
the
this.
Research.
Get this.
Get this.
So, all right. So what I found, Supernatural was started in 2005. It recently celebrated its 20th birthday. It's no longer a child. It's no longer a teenager.
That's
it's 20
crazy.
years old. It was the brainchild of a guy called Eric Kripke, and he wanted to create a series of stories that were based on like urban legends and American folklore. So urban legends would be things like Bloody Mary and the Hookman. I mean, I looked into the Hookman. It's creepy. Eric Kripke basically said he'd been dreaming of this since the 5th grade. And I'm from the UK, so I don't know what that means. What you do is you add a year on, you add a number on. So 5th grade, you add one, so it's 6.
Year
so he
6.
was 10 years old. Like 10 or 11, he's been like, I want this to be a show. So he has been manifesting this since he was 10 years old. And then it took another 10 years to develop. And originally it was going to be a film, but then it was like, nah, that's not going to work. It became a TV show, which works so much better because it was originally going to be, they were going to be reporters. So the two main characters were going to be tabloid reporters going around the country because, like, quote, the best vehicle to tell these stories is a road trip series because it's pure, stripped down and uniquely American. And they exist in small towns across the country, and it's going in and out. So, but then, you know, he changed his mind at the last minute for them to be brothers. And so, yeah, that was a last minute decision, which worked perfectly.
That's crazy. I can't imagine them not being brothers, to be honest.
No,
really...
especially with the actors who play them, with Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, their brotherhood. Oh my God. But they're from Lawrence, Kansas, and that's because of Stull Cemetery. It's close to Stull Cemetery, which is it's a location famous for urban legends, as I found out. The story follows Sam and Dean, who were raised as hunters by their dad after their mum was killed by a demon, who we later find out was the yellow-eyed demon, like the first big bad, the yellow-eyed demon. Yeah. And he's actually Azazel. He's a prince of hell, and there's 4 of them. So yay. But no, he's called Azazel. There's 4 princes of hell. Of course there are. There's 4's the magic number. And originally it had a monster of the week vibe. Like, you know, 1 minute there's a Wendigo, then there's a ghost, then there's, I don't even remember, demon. There was a demon.
Like redneck cannibal people. That's a true episode.
Oh my God. The fact the story's called The Benders. I'm like, excuse me. But no, there was so many different stories. And then the vampires. And then, oh, by the way, hi, John's here. I'm like, we've been calling you and texting you. We've been trying to go through.
He's not winning any like Dad of the Year prizes, I feel, is Mr. Winchester.
Not. No, if anyone's winning Dad of the Year, it's Bobby Singer. And I stand by that.
So how did it actually get to be such a long running show? Because from what I think I know is that it was only supposed to be 5 seasons, right?
Yeah, and I would have been pissed. But no, I think the reason it became so long running, there's one reason and one reason only. The fans. Because they became so invested in the show. I think it was after one of the seasons, season 2, I think, there was a fear of it being cancelled. And it carried on. Yes. And it carried on because there were petitions and people saying, do not, don't dare. And so I don't know if it was still on the WB or if it was moved to the CW, but whoever it was like, yeah, all right, I can carry on with it. No, the fans have like the dedication, like the cosplaying, the fan art, the fan fiction, some of which is very questionable. Oh my God. I mean, I've dabbled in them.
Haven't we all dabbled a little bit in the...
We both have.
I'm thinking there was a Scooby-Doo episode, which is like an official crossover.
Season 13. I mean, people do say that it's very much, Supernatural is very much like, I'm trying to think, Scooby-Doo meets Ghostbusters. kind of vibe. Like, it's Scooby-Doo for adults. Like, it's always been that comparison. And people said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if they ended up in that universe? And they did. And I cried. It was great. I was obsessed. But yes, it's very much Scooby-Doo, like, kind of vibes. Obviously, the brotherhood between Jared and Jensen, them wanting to carry on the show, and then the lore of the monsters, and like you even have characters like the Kitsune and the Peach Taco, or Fish Taco, if you're Dean Winchester. But it insight into other cultures and gets them in. But I think the other thing was the amount of characters that are so relatable.
Yes.
Like, not just Sam, Dean, and Cass. I mean, everyone knows about Sam, Dean, and Cass. But obviously Bobby and Jodie and Donna and Kevin and Garth and Gabriel, my boy, and Charlie. I think Charlie was a character a lot of fans saw themselves. Like, not like because she was nerdy, she was funny, like she was like the fans' eyes. Almost.
Yes, yeah, she was sort of
very into it.
Representative in the show, right?
And my favorite part of that was that she was considered LGBTQ plus rep. She was like first rep that I saw that wasn't like, oh, I'm gay and that's all I am. It was like, well, I can't flirt, but he's not a girl. And it's like, oh, okay, moving on. And it was like, it felt natural. Natural, not supernatural. It was natural.
Regularly
but
natural.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. Like, kind of having those characters that you can connect to, that felt like you could meet them in the street. I mean, if I met Garth in the street, I mean, that'd be kind of cute. He's a sweetheart. He's an underrated king. We love him. What a king.
So speaking of the fans being such a central part of the machine, really, for the show, what would you say the cultural impact of Supernatural was, and has that evolved from now versus where it was maybe 20 whole years ago when the show started?
I don't like that. I mean, I came in quite late. It was 10 years in when I got into it. But I think the cultural impact, obviously within the show, we have the whole story. When it started as Monster of the Week, then it became Heaven versus Hell. And it got people questioning about good versus evil, like that. Is it so black and white? I mean, the good and evil lines are very blurred. Like, the demons, like some of the demons, the bad characters, they do good things. And there are good characters who are evil. But no, even on social media sites like Tumblr. It is still, I looked today, it's still at number one. Like, the number one search term.
Really?
It's still at number one. I think so, yeah. I think another big cultural impact is the conventions. There's so many. Like, they go on every year. Yes. Like, it's crazy. Like, they're expensive. The tickets are really expensive. Like, and mental, just to meet them. But they have them in the US, all over the country. People go to multiple. I'm like, how? But then there's also ones in Germany and Italy. They do one every year.
Oh, wow.
Purgatory in Germany and Jib or Giumbello in Italy.
Oh, cool.
And then every other year they do one in Australia. They do, I don't think, they used to do one in the UK. They don't anymore, I don't think, which is rude. Hey, Creation
really rude.
Entertainment. Creation Entertainment, come to the UK, please.
Come back.
And can you bring Richard Speight Jr. with you? Because I think he's really cute and I want to tell him that in person. Thanks. Like, I know some of the actors do come over to like the generic conventions. So like For the Love of Fantasy, they had a lot of Supernatural actors there.
You get this real sense of like community, right? Where it brings all kinds of people from all over together with that shared obsession. I think is the
it is an obsession. And I mean, some people said, is it a cult? And I don't know. But
it could
speaking of community, speaking of community, you do have, there is one thing I do want to mention, and it came out when I was just joined, and that's the Always Keep Fighting campaign, which was started by Jared Padalecki, who plays Sam, who is my favourite, I will say, Sam Winchester for life. But he started this campaign in 2015 in March, and he had a t-shirt, and I still have mine. I have a t-shirt with it, but it doesn't fit me anymore because how can I put this? My assets have grown in. Yeah, I don't want his face covering. Yeah. Anyway, I still have my shirt. But it was to raise money for a charity in the US called To Write Love on Her Arms. And he opened up about his own mental health struggles and, you know, struggling with depression and suicidal ideation and things like that. And people were saying, like, sharing their stories. They were like, someone I look up to and adore is going through this and he's fighting. So can I. And people were starting to share their stories and kind of talking, hey, this is what I'm going through. And like, you're not alone. And people came together. And I think it's still like, even I have that mantra of always keep fighting playing in my head even now. 10 years on, and then there's still people who they get tattoos with AKF on that Jared has signed at conventions, or there's still campaigns going on. There's like to raise money, which is through Stands, which is like their merch store now. SPN has a merch store on Stands, but that's a really big cultural impact. I think people opening up about mental health. Yeah, like things about like mental health, and I think in today's day and age, especially when people are saying all these things like, oh, it's it's overdiagnosed, and but I think having that connection and community, watching a character you love going through something terrible and being like, I can do it. If they can do it, so can I.
Yes.
Like that. I've had people say, what would Sam Winchester do? What would Dean Winchester do? And it's really beautiful. And then obviously the angels and like their inability to connect with humans. I have friends who are neurodivergent who have said that Castiel, especially, that whole thing about try New Mexico, here he's on a tortilla. He's like, no, he's not on any flatbread, taking it literally. As someone with autism, it's very autism coded. And I know somebody in my life who watched that scene and was like, I do exactly, he's right. What are you talking about? And then he went to the doctor and he was diagnosed with autism. So it kind of helped him connect.
So you feel like Castiel's actually a very good representation, even though maybe he wasn't intended to be, is actually a really good representation of what neurodiversity can look like.
I mean, it is a massive spectrum.
I feel that's often, it's a huge spectrum. I like to think of it as a, like, in a video game where you have like a stat wheel. So you kind of have, there are things that you might be further out on the stat wheel than others. But I feel that they get that representation quite wrong a lot of the time, or it tends to be very pigeonholed into very certain types. Yeah. So, but you feel that Castiel's actually quite a good general example of how a lot of people maybe feel in that.
I think the angels in general, because obviously the angels are a very big spectrum. Like some of them are like, I have to follow these orders. I have to follow this routine because it's what I know. And when there's a change, when there's a sudden change, it can throw everything into chaos. And a lot of autistic people struggle with social change, like things like that. And like sudden change. And then you have Gabriel. I'm going to use Gabriel as an example. Why not? He is a great example. It's kind of like the fight or flight. So he was like, oh, I can't stand to see my brothers fighting. I'm going. I'm getting out of here. I'm running away. That is the flight. But that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, I love the trickster. He's funny. He's stupid. But then when he drops his facade of the trickster and is Gabriel, that's when I loved him, because it's like, that's masking. That is literally neurodivergent masking. He's taking off the mask of the trickster and he's just being himself. And I'm like, do you know what, dude? This is what I signed up for. Yeah, the trickster's funny. He's great. And he's like, I just want it to be over. I'm like, can I jump through the screen and hug him, please? Please. Poor baby.
I think
the scene when he's got rain on his face. He's
characters
just
that need
sad
hugs.
little baby. I'm like, but no, I mean, there's books about it. There's Family Don't End With Blood and There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, which is the cast and fans talking about their own experiences. I mean, obviously, Family Don't End With Blood, that you were mentioning earlier about the community.
Yes.
Very much resonates. Family Don't End With Blood, Bobby Singer, we love you, our king, our dad of the year.
Our dad of the year. Move over, John. You ain't do none.
John Winchester. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, God love him. Chuck love him. But,
I think that's a great place to end on. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any socials that you want to plug just at the end there for a little cheeky?
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, I did mention I was going to make some more content. I have a new TikTok page. Actually, I have two TikTok pages, but my main one is Laura's a Little Wayward. Originally, I was going to be Laura in the TARDIS, which is my Instagram name. But I was like, no, I'm going to branch out a little bit. But yes, Laura's a Little Wayward is my TikTok name.
Fantastic.
And Laura in the TARDIS is my Insta.
We can find your drag persona at Nora Divergent. Yes.
At Nora _ Divergent. Yeah, my drag name's Nora Divergent.
Amazing.
And there we go.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great time.
So Giles, that was Laura's expertise. What did you think?
I loved that. That is the kind of crazy, unbridled, boundless fan energy that I really respond to. That's for reference, ladies and gents, we've had to sort of cut down Laura's interview quite dramatically because she kept referencing things that happens after season 5. So if you want to hear the entire episode, the entire interview in full, go to our Patreon and sign up to our Bishop Waller Bridge tier, where you can also check out special bonus episodes like our God in You 2 and God in Gaming episodes. And if you're a bit strapped for cash and want to support us without spending money, then leaving us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Podbean, or wherever you're listening to this would make a massive difference in pointing people towards the show. And it would make my heart happy. The thing I also liked is when she talked about like how Castiel works as a representation of autism.
No, I felt that was a really interesting discussion because, as I mentioned, it's very hard, I think, to represent accurately because the spectrum is so varied and different. So it's nice when representations get it right for that part of the spectrum, because there's plenty of places, I think, where it's not done very well.
You know, like in Big Bang Theory with Sheldon, how they deliberately didn't diagnose him with anything because it gave them a little bit more freedom to not pigeonhole themselves into anything. And of course, Castiel being an angel, you've got a lot more freedom along that respect, because some of the other angels aren't like that at all. They're much more
they're a little more able to assimilate with human thinking, which Castiel struggles with.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, why would you say you have a guinea pig if you don't have an actual guinea pig? Right? Like...
I love him.
Fantastic. Now it's time for Finding the Faith in the Film.
Ba-ba! That's very harmonic.
So, for me, Supernatural, when I started watching, went some way to filling the hole that Buffy left, because I feel like there's a lot of Buffy DNA in this TV show, you know?
Yes, yeah.
I kind of saw it as like Buffy for boys. There's a fanficky part of my brain that wants to see Dean get schooled by Buffy, and I'm sure someone somewhere must have written that. In fact, I'm sure like 50 people have probably already written that, you know?
51. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. Sitting down with my laptop.
You could also see Supernatural as very much the Buffy for girls.
Yeah.
Darling, are you sure your needs are getting met? Because you seem very thirsty watching this show, you know? I think you've never got a glimpse into the dark part of me that it really can get quite obsessed over TV fictional characters that have a very, very unhealthy emotional state. Yeah, nice.
The real reason why Laura and I have remained friends so long is that she was a Sam girly and I was a Dean girly, so we never had to fight over our boys, you know what I mean? It was equal split 50-50. It was perfect. Yeah. See, I am also a Dean girl, so I hope we don't come to blows. Yeah. It's okay. We can share.
Is it?
You know,
I mean,
can have them on weekends or whatever. You know.
We'll figure it out.
Why Dean over Sam then?
I was never really one for the pretty boy look.
Yeah, aesthetically, I think it's the proportions.
They are both quite pretty though.
Dean's a bit more rough and ready.
Yeah, I mean he'd be a terrible boyfriend, I feel like, especially early, like you know, season 1, 2 Dean, where
so
you know,
bad.
he
so
would
bad.
terrible.
But
he wouldn't call you back.
To him. He's so messed up that you just want to be like, I'll fix you, I promise.
I can fix him. It's fine.
I'm so glad you met somebody like me.
I know, right?
Because
so
you dear me, you know. So for me though, the big difference, the big split, if you like, tonally, was in season 2, where we got the first reference to Lucifer. Because demons we were quite familiar with, and ghosts and everything. In that Buffy world where there was multiple hells, and the famous phrase, the jury's out when it comes to sort of God and heaven and everything. And then the fact that they're like, oh, Lucifer, like, oh, I know who that is. You know, you really kind of piqued your attention, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, we're doing this, are we? Yeah. And that's from that point on, it was like a rush to the end for me to get to that, to find the conclusion of that. You know, there's a much more defined, but also really not defined
religious background to it, isn't it, in terms of like familiarity with the characters, but also very different to what we're used to in the Christian universe.
I think the depiction of Lucifer in this is wonderful, to be honest with you. You know, I think the way he's able to tell the truth to people and lie at the same time is quite fascinating. This is one of those areas, again, where we owe a lot to John Milton and Paradise Lost, where you get to sympathize with a bad guy character.
I was just going to say they have the Milton problem, and that it's so much easier to depict the devil and the demons in an interesting way, and God and the good side is much harder to do, I think.
Yeah. Sort of focusing as being a fallen angel rather than a demon, I suppose. But I mean, yeah, I think it almost not suffers, but it has the same idea that superhero films had circa like 2010s, where it's like, oh, it's Superman, but we need to make him grittier and take all the color out of his little spandex suit and make him grizzle on top of skyscrapers sometimes. Like there always seems to be this need or this obsession with making things grittier and darker than maybe they need to be.
The economy is booming. All of our art must be dark and gritty.
Yes. What if angels were sometimes bad guy? Discuss.
Yeah.
And so, what is your knowledge and understanding of angels before we really get into it?
I mean, they hang out with God. I know you've got Raphael, you've got Michael. For a second there, I nearly said Michelangelo, and I had to really distinctly separate the turtles from. You've got Michael, you've got Gabriel. Gabriel makes me laugh because I associate Gabriel with like Year 6 nativity. When he comes down to like tell, by the way, Mary, you're gonna have a baby, don't worry about it. I got to be Angel Gabriel in like Year 3. Nice. Peak of my nativity career, to be honest. So you know, that's my little claim to fame. So I kind of know a few of the big names. I know they kind of seem to do God's bidding. Like his gang, you know, they hang out with him. They have a lot of eyes. I love the biblically accurate blank. It's a favourite trend of mine.
Yes, it is good.
So I see where you're going with that, and you're not wrong, but you could be more right. So angels is quite a sort of nebulous term in a lot of cases. So the way I've always been given to understand it is that angels are servants of God rather than children of God, and that angels have no choice but to obey God, whereas human beings have free will. And the difference that this show makes is that there is a little bit more flexibility on that issue, and it's presented as neither option is presented as good, because you are either a rebel or you follow an authoritarian leader unquestioningly.
I thought that was a really interesting exploration of that, actually, what that means for angels if they have no choice but to obey, because that's the whole reason why, you know, there's the argument for humans have free will, because it would be rubbish otherwise. You can't be forced to love someone. That doesn't work. I did think it was interesting how it looked at that and what that existence would be like.
And I think the way it talks with, I can't remember the female angel, the redhead who
Anna, but that's not her real name.
Oh
yeah,
I think it is Anna.
That bit about being on the road constantly, sort of doing the job and getting vague missives from a distant father. I think there's probably a lot of people who have developed their relationship with God based on their relationships with their fathers, you know, and have that sense of like being distant and being aloof, you know. So I thought they nailed that parallel really well. Isaiah 6 is probably my favorite yeah, it's probably my favorite section of the Old Testament, you know? And in the year, it's Isaiah 6, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 wings they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying, and they were calling to one another, Holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, the whole earth is full of his glory. So that's the seraphim. Gosh, this is going to get full on now, okay? Because the cherubim are powerful winged celestial beings appearing in Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, described in the Bible as guardians of sacred spaces like Eden, bearers of God's throne, possessing composite features like human faces, animal bodies, and multiple wings covered in eyes. So I'm not.
That's
okay. So
crazy.
I know, right?
Like little Sphinx kind of vibes.
So yeah, cherubim and seraphim are quite similar, I would say, in some fashion.
There's different branches of the department.
Well, this is you're hitting on the next point that I was going to say, is that Gabriel, I think, was always sort of presented as like head of the messengers, angels. You know,
that's how you imagine him. I don't know if that's actually what it says in the Bible.
That's a good point. I think
it's a lot of it gets mixed up with Greek and Roman mythology.
Yeah.
Hence the cherubim have been conflated with Cupid, little fat flying babies.
Yes, yeah.
Yes. That was the word I was looking for, Cupid.
Yes.
Yeah. And then obviously the biggie is Michael, who is canonically an archangel. The big archangels that we would know about were Michael, Gabriel, and Lucifer. And then obviously Lucifer basically says you can stick your job. Raphael, I wasn't going to mention Raphael because he obviously doesn't appear in the first 5 seasons of.
I didn't even know he appeared in Supernatural. I was just trying to remember.
Spoiler.
He might do.
As best I can tell, Raphael only appears in the Apocrypha. We get mixed up with a few different things, so we will get.
I get the Apocrypha stuff mixed up with Bible stuff.
Yeah, you were like all over the shop with this stuff, weren't you?
Boom. Yeah, is it vaguely biblical related? Maybe. Boom. It's Bible.
It's confusing.
So Michael's an archangel, and he's the warrior of God in Judaism, Islam, and he's a saint in Christianity. Okay.
I know. I feel like they just stick saint in everything.
I like. Do you reckon you could just apply for that? Because like there's already a Saint Giles. He's the patron saint of beggars and cripples, and I'm just like, I'll take the whole thing all on in one go.
I think you may have to like have some kind of miracle happen.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. Okay. They do make you do one of those in your application.
Oh, this flipping red tape! You got
you might have to die a martyr.
But I mean, at this rate, that's not that difficult. You know, you can get arrested for saying I'm opposed to genocide. So who knows what will happen next? You know.
Yeah.
So, early surviving mentions of Michael are in the 3rd, 2nd, and 2nd century BC Jewish works, and they're often, but not always, apocalyptic. Whereas the chief of the angels and the archangels, there's some referring to him as the guardian prince of Israel, and it's his responsibility to care for the people of Israel. And Christianity conserved nearly all the Jewish traditions concerning Michael, and he's mentioned in Revelation 12. 7 to 12 explicitly, and let me bring that up for you so I can. Let's do the Message version because that's Julia's version. Okay. Revelation 12, 7 to 12. War broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but were no match for Michael. They were cleared out of heaven, not a sign of them left. The great dragon, ancient serpent, the one called Devil and Satan, the one who led the whole earth astray, thrown out, and all his angels thrown out with him, thrown down to earth. Then I heard a voice out of heaven saying, "Salvation and power are established, kingdom of God, authority of Messiah, the accuser of our brothers and sisters thrown out, who accuse them day and night before God." So we've got some really, like, it's funny that obviously we think of Revelation as being all about like the future, but this seems to be covering something in the quite far in the past, like the schism in heaven and like the fall,
I don't know if that's referring to like the future final defeat of Satan at the end of the world.
Yeah.
I am fuzzy on all of this stuff, honestly.
I mean, to be fair, this stuff is pretty fuzzy, and if you spend too much time in it, you end up into tin hat territory, So our general policy on this show is don't spend too much time worrying about the theoretical possible dangers of the world when there's so many real, actual, concrete dangers just right in front of you there,
Like how raisin cookies can look a lot like chocolate chip cookies.
That is very upsetting.
Yeah. So you gotta watch out for that.
Yeah, one of the big concerns of our time.
There's another reference to him in the book of Jude, or the Epistle of Jude, where Michael and the devil have a dispute over the body of Moses.
I have not heard of this.
Which is another weird one. Let me see if I can find that for you.
It would make the basis for a really funny, like, biblical sitcom. Like Upstart Crow, but Bible.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, that needs to happen.
Oh, what Bible, sorry?
Like an Upstart Crow.
Upstart Crow, which if you've not watched is the creator of Blackadder takes on Shakespeare's shenanigans as he writes his plays, and it is fabulous.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But even the archangel Michael, when he was disputing with the devil about the body of Moses, did not himself dare to condemn him for slander, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Okay. I mean, Jude's writing in the first century, he's referencing texts that we don't have access to anymore, so okay.
Gonna have to go away and study that one.
There's also a suggestion that he's mentioned in the book of Daniel, which is composed in the 2nd century BC, in which a man clothed in linen, who's never identified but matches the description given to John in Revelation regarding the Alpha and Omega, tells Daniel that he and Michael, your prince, are engaged in a battle with the Prince of Persia, after which, at the end of time, Michael, the great prince who protects your peoples, will arise. So,
sorry, you raced through that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, So basically, in the book of Daniel, I think there's a suggestion that Jesus sort of turns up, or at least the
Jesus is right. Okay.
Who is with Michael?
Okay.
It's a bit head scratchy,
Okay, yeah.
So there is...
He's referenced a lot.
Yeah, he's referenced a lot.
A thing.
He's mentioned a lot. He's also mentioned in the Apocrypha, and we've talked about this before. Did you know there's also another name for the Apocrypha? I can't remember if I've mentioned this.
If you did, I have slept since then, and I can't remember it anymore.
Okay. So apparently, another name for the Apocrypha is the Deuterocanon, as in secondary canon of books.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And what the
like
Bible
extended
Project...
universe.
Yeah, basically. What the Bible Project described it as was like, look, don't let the guys who are just coming through the door read this. This is something that needs to be looked over and studied and using your wisdom to understand.
There's probably a reason why they didn't include it in the Bible. It might be a bit unreliable.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So there's some suggestions sometimes that it's false or spurious or bad or heretical. So it kind of got collected, and I think the Apocrypha or the books of the Apocrypha were standard in the Bible until about the 16th century. In fact, I think some Orthodox churches still use the Apocrypha as a fairly standard. Apocrypha books were primarily removed from the Protestant Bibles in the 19th century, with a major removal occurring in 1885 when the revised version of the King James Bible was published without them.
Is it kind of like whichever like class, like whichever like level of Christian type you depends on if you get the unlockable material like or not?
Yeah. Different authors in different times wrote them and never considered them as one, so that like there's different
yeah 14 books, aren't they, you know? Okay, can I say something weird? But I kind of like the fact that there's some books that were just kind of knocked out. At some point somebody went,
do we need this?
Do you know what, lads, this sounds a bit sketch. This sounds a bit more like fan fiction than actual canon stuff, you know, because it does imply that there's a thoughtful, scholarly approach to this stuff going on. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so it's more complicated than we thought, basically, the Apocrypha, as to whether it's... Yeah.
So one of the books in the Apocrypha that you might have heard of is the Book of Enoch. The character of Enoch is an actual character that exists in the Old Testament. He is canonical, and he's a pre-flood character. He's the father of Methuselah, who was the oldest man who lives for like 935 years or something like that. And he's the great-grandfather of Noah. So the text of the book of Genesis says Enoch lived for 365 years before he was taken by God.
Oh, yeah, the dude who didn't die.
The text reads that Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him, which is interpreted as Enoch entering heaven alive in some Jewish and tradition.
That sounds like he died to me.
Well, yes, but the way it was always presented to me was, wow, how amazing was this guy that he was just so close to God that God just took him whole cloth. But yeah, you know, it's...
See, I did know about Enoch a little bit, because in the lore of Vampire the Masquerade, he's a vampire, and he creates like the first city of vampires that actually like goes good for a little while before they eventually have to like go back underground, because it just crumbles to pieces. So.
And what book series is that?
So Vampire the Masquerade is a role-playing game.
Okay.
So
there we go.
White Wolf is the publisher of Vampire the Masquerade, but it's the World of Darkness umbrella. I get my Bible studies from elsewhere. Role-playing games are good. You should let they teach you things that you wouldn't ordinarily have learned. So,
what? That Enoch was a vampire? Yeah,
that's why he lived so long.
Yeah. So in the New Testament, the Gospel of Luke, Hebrews, and Jude all reference Enoch, the last of which also quotes from the Book of Enoch. Now, Book of Enoch's ancient Jewish apocalyptic religious text ascribed by tradition to the patriarch Enoch, and it contains unique material on the origins of demons and Nephilim. Nephilim were another type of, they get mentioned in Genesis 6, mysterious giant-like beings mentioned in Genesis 6:4 and other texts, believed to be the offspring of rebellious sons of God, which is often interpreted as angels and human women, known as mighty warriors or men of renown before the Great Flood.
So a cross between demons and human women.
I don't even know if I'd say demons, because that's not what it says.
Fallen angels is what it says.
No, they are referred to as sons of God in Genesis. I'll tell you what, let me find it. Let's open up.
Offspring of rebellious sons of God. Okay, sure.
Right, Genesis 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born, so then the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were heroes of old, men of renown. So that in Genesis, that's what they're referred to as sons of God.
And that's really interesting that the angels are referred to as sons of God.
What
just said is not what they are.
Well, again, we are interpreting them as that.
Angels.
You've got to remember, Genesis is mental.
Oh yeah.
And also, Genesis isn't. It's not really just one book. It's kind of a few books smashed into each other at speed. You know,
it's a lot of kind of Jewish myths and legends kind of piled into.
Basically,
into
yeah. Like Nick Page, who wrote the Badly Behaved Bible, talked about how there's two creation stories for mankind, and they just whack them both in together at the same time, which is why you kind of have two in the same space. And that's where you get the Lilith storyline, because it talks about...
I was going to ask about this because I wasn't sure if she was apocryphal as well. I couldn't remember if she was in the Bible or not, because Lilith as a I don't want to say as a character, but for lack of a better
Character's
word,
okay.
Like she has kind of been the myth of Lilith has kind of like spread across quite a few different religions and spiritualities now, I feel.
Yeah,
you see a lot of
she
modern
fully
pagans
mythical,
kind
I
of
think.
going to working with Lilith as their primary deity, but I wasn't sure if she's biblical or apocryphal.
She's not biblical. I'm not even sure if she's apocryphal in the sense of in the Apocrypha. I thought she came out of Jewish tradition,
Jewish myth.
because like I say, they put the creation of woman in Genesis sort of twice. The Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs. I think that might be a dodgy translation of ribs. I think it might be the man's side.
Yes, it is.
And then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib. He'd taken out the man and he brought her to man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She should be called woman, for she was taken a man."
I did find at work the other day a women's liberation magazine, which is called Spare Rib.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fantastic. And the copy I found even had a free pull-out knitting pattern, which is just, what more could you possibly want?
That's the dream right there. That's the dream right there.
Yeah, and in Genesis, that was Genesis 2. In
right,
Genesis
okay.
1, God created mankind in his own image.
Yeah.
The image of God had created them, male and female had created them. So that's much more simple.
Okay, yeah. So it's the fact that they both kind of get stuck in together that introduced this idea that maybe there was somebody beforehand, and then there was a second wife, Eve. I always find that interesting. God created mankind, and in the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. There is an entire episode we could do on trans issues and intersex issues and how they relate to that particular line, and how it's not rib but it's side, but we were going to have to put a pin in that for another time. So the Book of Enoch,
Yeah.
okay, contains info on demons, Nephilim, why some angels fell from heaven, an explanation of why the Genesis flood was morally necessary. Is it though? Was it really? And a prophetic exposition of the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah. Enoch is not considered to be canonical scripture by most Jewish or Christian church bodies, though it's part of biblical canon used by the Ethiopian Jewish community Beta Israel, as well as the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church and the Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church. So you've got to be pretty far off the reservation to consider the Book of Enoch to be an actual thing, okay? But then this brings us to Enochian language. It's basically sort of used as the language of the angels, isn't it? Used as like a binding spell and that sort of stuff. Now, we've mentioned John Dee before on this podcast, haven't we?
Yes, lovely. This is my wheelhouse now. I can see where we're going with this. I'm ready.
Yeah. So Enochian language is an occult constructed language said to have been received by angels, recorded by the journals of John Dee. And I think I've previously said in the past on the show and incorrectly stated that it was John Dee talking to angels, whereas in fact I found out it was his sort of colleague Edward Kelly.
They're sort of like a duo.
So John Dee was a famous mathematician, scientist, alchemist, astrologer, and occultist, former advisor to Elizabeth I, and served as court magician. Apparently this guy, basically the reason we have algebra comes down to a lot of this guy. And also,
thanks, John.
Thanks for that. Super helpful.
Great. Thanks so much for algebra.
Yeah. But also, apparently he sort of revolutionized how people navigate by using maths and using the stars sort of thing, because before that point ships and sailors and stuff, they would hug close to the coast of a country and just look out for landmarks they knew. He really helped with the navigation, which obviously made a massive difference to crossing oceans. And apparently John Dee was the first person to coin the term British Empire. So a lot of the sort of...
John.
I was going to say, I think people crossed oceans before him. So
they did, but I think it was a little bit more...
hit and miss.
Yeah, a little bit. So he begins experimenting with Edward Kelly, who's quite a lot younger than him, and who claimed to be able to communicate with the spirits and angels by scrying. We talked about scrying was like this kind of looking into this dark glass.
Yeah, so you can scry theoretically in a few different things. I believe John Dee had an obsidian mirror, so a very dark, it's very kind of dark, spooky vibes, but it's a very dark black semi-precious stone.
Yeah.
And also quite reflective, so the idea is that you kind of put yourself into a sort of dark kind of environment, you kind of get into a sort of slightly meditative kind of headspace, and then you see what you can see in shapes and images on the object. So some people use water or candle flames, or crystal ball is the classic example. But an obsidian mirror can be used if you don't have anything else available.
Good to know. Good to know. So it's Kelly that's doing the scrying, and Dee is basically just writing it all down. And how can I put this? Unless you are incredibly credulous, you can see that Edward Kelly is obviously just taking Dee for a ride here. You know, there's no scientific method as we think of things. That it's the idea of like this one person getting specialist knowledge from the supernatural, and only he can see it, and it's coming in these special words. And like when it was translated, it would be referencing ancient Egyptian stuff and all this other things, which you could find elsewhere. You know, you could find in other things. You know, and again, we get to the point where Kelly tells John Dee, "Oh, by the way, the angels are saying we should swap wives."
The old story. I want to sleep with someone, and I'm going to go through a very convoluted process to manage it.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend I can hear from the angels. Okay,
so
that's
Edward
how Enochian came about.
Edward claimed to receive visions from God in 1587. One of the visions was that the two men needed to swap wives in order to learn how to create the Philosopher's Stone, because they needed to share everything and commit adultery. John Dee's wife cried for half an hour and pleaded with John to stop these experiments, but John convinced her to go along with it. John and Edward eventually had a falling out and parted ways for good. Edward continued to travel through Europe and claimed that he had the ability to transmute metal into gold. How can I put it? You know you're in trouble when the good guy in this story is the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. You know, Rudolph II employs Edward because of his claims, and when he's unable to produce the gold, Edward is imprisoned, and he dies in 1597 after attempting to escape by falling through a window and breaking his leg.
No less than he deserved.
Yeah, he's thrown back into a cell with no medical treatment, dies of infection years later. So there we go. That's him.
That's what you
Done.
get.
That's what you get when you mess around with Emperor Rudolph II. Again, coming back to the Buffy reference, I don't know if anybody remembers, but in the early series, there would be references to characters like Moloch and the Cross of Dulac and all this sort of stuff. The term they used in the Buffy writers' room was phlebotinum. And phlebotinum was the magical thing that makes the story happen.
Yeah, so they'll doohickey.
Yeah, the doohickey. You know, they're close to a bit like a MacGuffin. And pretty soon, they just gave up on finding any references to stuff. And they were like, it's the sacred amulet of Slarty Barty Fast. You know, they don't... Yeah. Actually, no, that's more referencing than they went into thinking about it, you know? Yeah. And the thing I love about this is the Enochian magic, as a plot device in Supernatural, it's mainly just used to kind of trap angels in one place a lot of the time, so you could have these kind of angry, scary conversations with them. And
they're too powerful. You have to find some way to...
Yeah. And I just think that the way that it's presented, that if you're actually referring to stuff that already exists in mythology, it's such a richer experience, you know?
So there isn't really any Enochian language then?
No.
It's just made up by Edward Kelly to sleep with John Dee's wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah, it feels like that's probably the case.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where John Dee, like I say, he's already quite an established court magician. There's one story about John Dee's mother dying, and they're bringing her out for the funeral process and all the rest of it. Elizabeth I just turns up at his house,
I love
and he's
her.
like, Your Majesty, hi, I'm really sorry, and I think she basically just kind of waits around and lets him sort of sort out his mother.
Wow.
You know,
Elizabeth I is hanging around waiting for you.
I could wax lyrical about her. I adore her. No, it's perfect in every way. For me, I feel like the Enochian stuff kind of ends up being, especially in this period, you get a real fashion for magic is being used to summon angels, and it's quite a religious experience as opposed to being a purely occult experience. So it's all about getting angels to do stuff for you. You want to get rich, summon an angel and have them find money for you. You want to get a wife, summon an angel and have them find you a wife. So that kind of mix, that intersection where religion and occultism kind of overlap is really interesting for me.
It's interesting because it's before the witch trials and it's before the Bible is translated into English. It's all magic and religion is all kind of very mixed up together.
Like John Dee can get away with it for two reasons. One, he's a man, which is the big one.
Way, lads.
But the second is that it's what you might term as like a high magic. So it's very ritualistic. You have to kind of get all your ducks in a row before you begin. It's all very based in Christian religion. You know, you need your chants and your candles and your books and stuff, which is very different from the quote unquote low magic that you kind of get in the wise woman kind of area, which is you're using the land, you're using your own knowledge to do these kind of magical workings in a way that disrupts the hierarchy a little bit. So he's kind of like that
class
sweet
thing, really.
Yes,
if you're an educated man, you can probably get away with doing magic. If you're a poor woman, you probably can't.
Why go to a doctor and spend a ridiculous amount of money when you know that the elderly lady who lives in the woods can heal you with a little pouch of dirt and a psalm, and that does sort of the same thing. So it's class is a big reason. There's a few reasons why we kind of get into the witch hunts. It's not really like a one theory fits all, which is what I find really interesting about it. But John Dee kind of exists in this very nice sweet spot where it's just before things get sticky, and also he's a man, and also he's got his obsidian scrying mirrors and his kind of high angelic magic that he can kind of use. So I yapped there about my special interest.
No, I love it. So I wanted to talk briefly about the depiction of heaven in it, because in season 5, I think episode 16, Dark Side of the Moon, Sam and Dean are killed by a pair of hunters, and they kind of find themselves in heaven being chased by the angel Zechariah. Now, like, putting aside the whole being chased by a dodgy angel sort of thing, I kind of like this depiction of heaven. In fact, I'd say between this, The Lovely Bones, and The Good Place, this has probably done more to influence my idea of what heaven is than a lot of things we've heard in church.
That's interesting.
Well, for me, because I think that's probably because the Bible doesn't really focus that much on what heaven is like. Not really, compared to the amount of time we spend thinking about it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I found the depiction of heaven in Supernatural quite terrifying.
Yeah, no, that a lot of it was, but the initial concept I liked, sorry, talking about the Bible, it's more about getting the kingdom of God to come down here, I think, rather than what's coming like over there. So we're very much into the realm of Gilesian headcanon here. Okay, this is not anything I have biblical backup for, so please take this with a pinch of salt. But for me, I always imagine that this idea of heaven and meeting the Almighty while scores of angels cheer you on to be like a bit overwhelming in the first instance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't think a human mind would be able to easily process this. Like, hi, you're dead. Welcome to heaven. Please line up to meet Jesus if you just take a ticket. Do you know what I mean? It all feels like a lot, you know? All of that happening on the first day would be like way too much. So the idea that we might have some kind of personalized heaven, come to a place where we get to relive some of our happiest memories, or be in an idyllic setting sounds kind of wonderful to me. The idea that you could go through a door and end up in somebody else's heaven and visit them sounds absolutely marvelous. The thing that terrifies me about the afterlife is the idea that the human banality would just follow us through there. You know, I recently reviewed a film called Eternity for Premier Christianity, and I struggled with that, with how bland and inhuman the afterlife was, how there was arbitrary rules mercilessly enforced.
Where a woman dies and it's both her first and her second husband are there, and she kind of then has to make the decision about who to spend the rest of her eternity with.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Because I saw the trailers for this, but I haven't actually watched this film.
Yeah, it's fine. You know,
It's fine.
I will. We might cover it if I can work up the enthusiasm for it. But you know, so for me, I have this image of my house in heaven being like a small little house with like a really big table and sliding French doors leading out to a garden which slopes down onto a small lake, and everybody I love being like walking distance, you know. And then when you're kind of done with that, when you've kind of rested and sort of got over the trauma that was just being alive, then you can move on to, would you like to meet the Almighty now? Because some people's depiction of heaven as like this non-stop worship session, it sounds uninteresting, but also it sounds like torture.
It does.
To me, you know?
Or like the depictions where it's this very overly white expanse.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
So overstimulating and yet also not at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all sorts of books and stuff about people that have had like experiences of dying and coming back and stuff. But I worked on a book with a woman who had she got breast cancer and then she recovered from that, and then she got it again, but a different type of breast cancer. And she was a Christian and a vicar. She was a bit like, what's going on, Lord?
That's a rough hand to get dealt. That's really rough.
Yeah, but I worked on a book that she wrote. Thankfully, she's in recovery now. But she had some really incredible experiences of God, because she nearly died. She got very, very, very sick, and she described it as kind of like sinking to the ocean floor. But what she described was much more the feeling of just being completely surrounded by just complete peace and calm and love, and like not really having any sense of time. But it was just this feeling of being so completely safe and loved that it was, you were just like, this is fine. Which I found quite comforting. And so the book that she wrote, she's quite like an academic and theoretical person, so she sort of struggled with this a little bit and spent a lot of time studying, you know, the early Christian desert fathers and meditation from across the world and all that sort of thing, to try and recreate this experience of closeness with God, which is really fascinating. But yeah, the things I've heard from people that have experienced those really like close experiences with God is much more the feeling and less about the surroundings. And I'm like, I feel like in the afterlife that will come into it, but it's much more about just that transcendental experience of peace and love.
At the risk of like cheapening the moment, isn't that kind of how it's described in Buffy?
Yes,
there was no pain, no fear, no doubt, till they pulled me out of heaven.
I feel, because unless I miss, it's been a little while since I've had my last rewatch, because I don't think they actually show it in any way. But Buffy just kind of explains being in a peaceful, safe place that was just elsewhere. So maybe Buffy got it right.
Also, when they're in heaven, God seems to be out of the picture. It reminds me a little bit of like Philip Pullman, and the depiction of the what do you call it, the region in that where God's absent and there's no Jesus. Or is there?
Da, da, da.
There's one character who we're told does get to speak to Jesus. In heaven,
does get to speak to God.
There's one character that gets to speak to God in heaven, and it's the gardener. and he's depicted as an old man called Joshua, and
a black guy called Joshua who's the gardener.
Go on, you tell it.
That definitely sounds a lot like Jesus, doesn't it? Joshua is another word for Jesus.
Joshua and
Yeshua.
Jesus, they both come from the root word Yeshua, which means the Lord saves. So we know him as like Jesus Christ. Obviously, Christ wasn't his surname. Christ is another way of saying the Messiah. But Yeshua ben Joseph or something.
Basically, Jesus' name was Josh, and I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, Josh Jacobson.
And also, when he rises from the dead, Mary thinks he's the gardener.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I didn't even know that as a thing.
Yeah,
No idea.
Yeah.
So because it's a fascinating show in a lot of ways, because it shows you what would this all be like if you didn't have Jesus in the equation, you know? And I'm going to give you a little clue for how to check out who are the people who say they're Christians and who are the real G's, okay? Because when somebody talks about, well, God wouldn't want this or God wouldn't want that or anything like that, contrast them with the people that say, well, Jesus doesn't want this or Jesus doesn't want that, because God is way more abstract as a concept, you know, whereas Jesus is a lot more concrete. And there was literally two dudes following around writing down everything he said, you know. So the reason why I think that's tricky is you can kind of bend God to do and mean whatever you want him to mean. You can't do that with Jesus. Jesus was always against the authorities. He was always against corruption. He was always flipping those tables, and you can't ever really squash him into being part of an imperial mindset, no matter how hard you try, you know. So like I say, next time you're hearing some Christian pundit, keep an ear out for whether they talk about God or whether they talk about Jesus, because that's such a big deal, you know.
I think it's the thing I found about the theology of supernatural, as it were, is it's so dark. Like, I love the show, but there's just no hope there, is there?
It's maybe what happens when you take Christianity through a mythology lens, sort of the way that we do like Roman and Greek and like Egyptian mythology, because that was the religion at one point. Does that make sense? See, like, I feel like the way that we treat Greek mythology especially is, I feel like there's a lot of creative license that kind of gets taken with Greek mythology in many, many different ways, and there's a lot of really fun media that's focused around Greek as a mythology rather than as a religion. I feel like with Supernatural, that's what you've got if you focused on sort of Christian and Abrahamic theology as mythology then as a religion. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've explained that very well.
Also, I agree, but also with just completely removing Jesus from it. It's like, take out all of the love and the hope, and what you have left is what you're showing in Supernatural.
Yeah, but also, I think this is less of a Christian issue and more, it's more akin to children's fiction. Because why are the parents always rubbish or dead in every kid's book, adventure book? It's because if the parents actually knew how to handle this situation, then you wouldn't have the kids being the main characters, you know? So conversely, how do you make Sam and Dean Winchester the saviors of mankind if you have a loving, righteous God who is powerful and who can crush Satan's head as easily as sort of walking, you know? So I would put it down to more like a convention of this type of fiction than anything else.
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
you have to put a ceiling, a power level ceiling somewhere. I mean, as when you watch more of the show, you'll find out the ceiling kind of is moved higher and higher each season.
Yeah.
Well, this brings me to my point, and this is a question I was going to ask you, Julia. The way the the way season 5 ends, it's sort of presented that Chuck, the writer Garrett Edlund, is God. Is that ever expanded on, or what?
I soldiered on with Supernatural, and when I first watched it, and I got to about mid-season 9, and then I sadly just couldn't take any more, because if you think where season 5 ends, where you've successfully trapped Lucifer and Michael in an eternal battle in hell, your main characters are disbanded, you've stopped an apocalypse. Where do you go after that? Except more apocalypses of different kinds. And so I when I rewatched Supernatural, I stopped at 5 because
I made it through to season 6 with the Leviathans.
Yeah, season 6 always felt a little stilted, because you have to bring... You've already stopped the train tracks, and now you're kind of having to build the whole station new again from almost scratch. But yeah, I think the eventual idea is that Chuck is God at some point, but it's... I'm not gonna lie, I it's tenuous. I'm not sure how that works.
I'm sure there's a scene where Chuck at one of the conventions is playing a little bit of skee ball. You know that game where they throw a ball into the different little round things, and I could swear that must be a reference to Dogma, because in Dogma, God comes down to Earth, takes human form every weekend or so, and plays a little skee ball on the Jersey boardwalk, you know?
Such a good film.
And so I was like, anytime you God and skee ball in the same thing, it's like Dogma, you know? So I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was, usually I think I fairly show my sort of liberal side and my fairly progressive side on things. There's some things where I'm a bit more conservative. It doesn't happen often, but it is there. And I thought the depiction of casual sex a lot of the time kind of bothered me in the seasons we've covered, in seasons 1 to 5. And the idea that you can just sort of sleep around with whoever you like, and also be God's vessel in the final battle between good and evil. Yeah, that didn't quite sit right with me. But Clash, we were talking about this earlier, and you said something fascinating.
Yeah, it is interesting when you bring in that point that he's meant to be God's vessel, and okay, yeah, you'd think God's vessel would need to be pure in some way, and I don't think you could describe Dean like that. But yeah, the casual sex is definitely just one of his many coping mechanisms, alongside the drinking and the killing things.
Going back to our earlier points, Dean would be a terrible boyfriend. Terrible.
Oh, so bad. Yeah.
The thing is, because it's especially the first couple seasons, it's such an episodic show. But obviously, the boys need, especially Dean. I think Dean's always kind of marketed as sort of the hot one in a sense. He's
the hot one, and
the
Sam's
bad boy
the
that you
sensitive one.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you're halfway to a boy band, aren't you? You know.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the hot one has to have a girlfriend, or has to have a love interest. But when you're hopping cities every episode and up and down the country, then obviously it can't be a long-term one. So for sure it's coping mechanisms, because
definitely.
Look, John, you did a bad job. He was not raised right.
He's looking for things to fill that echoing void inside of him, whether that's casual sex or alcohol or whatever it is, and he is not a healthy man. But I think also it means that when someone comes along who he does kind of fall for, it gives it more impact. So it's someone managed to capture Dean's heart, and now he has actual feelings that he's got to deal with, and he's so conflicted, and
he's gonna broodingly drive the Chevy and look out of the windscreen broodingly, while Sam is on the laptop in the passenger seat somehow, when it's 2006. Where are you getting Wi-Fi from? How?
It's like they have this truly awful life where they only have each other to talk to, and they're killing things and nearly dying all of the time and going through all these incredibly horrendously traumatic events, and You know what? If they need some coping mechanisms for that, I'm not going to blame them too much.
Well, they are trauma bonded throughout this whole thing, and I think that's the thing that makes the big difference. You know,
I also don't think it necessarily shows Dean's sleeping around in a positive light. I don't think it says this is fine.
There is almost a kind of a callous aspect to it that they don't. Yeah, I don't think they glorify it, but they don't really shy away from it either, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also just, sometimes it's just a funny, quirky part of his character. Oh, Dean in all the strip clubs.
Old scamp.
Yeah. But as you go on, it does become a bit like, oh, he's just trying to hide the horrible darkness.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that wraps up our Supernatural episode. Quick thank you to our patrons, Miss Sarah Cooper, Jonathan Wattis, James Pittard, Simon Sella, Miss Sarah Cooper. Sarah Cooper gets in twice for some reason. She seems to have signed up twice. Thanks, Sarah. Philip Coleman, Lance Kane, and one Natalie Faye Miniker. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Claire, have you had a good time?
I always have a lovely time. Thank you.
Fantastic. Julia, having a good time?
I've had a great time because I've had a Claire this time. Not that, I don't like our little chats, but it's so nice to have some girl company.
Yeah, no, every woman we meet loves my wife.
And we can figure out that
catnip over here.
Yeah,
apparently.
Yeah, we'll figure out that Dean borrowing schedule. I'll get back to you.
Work it out. Like, really, I don't want Dean as a boyfriend. I just want like one amazing night, and then
that's a very, very special Patreon episode.
Like, I want that, but I also just want to rescue the poor boy.
Yes, feed him a meal that is not from a diner or a motel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Get him some therapy.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have Dean Winchester. I'll have Gillian Anderson in any role ever, frankly, for that matter. There's no bad answers when it's Gillian Anderson. It could be like Lady Havisham, frankly, and I could still find a way to make it work.
Okay, all right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hope you join us for our next episode, which will be Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Julia, I think you might have some feelings on that one.
It's gonna be big feelings.
It's gonna be big feelings. It's gonna be big feelings, but it's a safe space, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us witter. Have a great time. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. God in Film is hosted and created by Giles Gough.
That's me.
Mixing and editing by Giles. Our logo was designed by
Julie Walsh.
And our theme tune was composed by
Rick Lee.
Please rate and review.
Please give us 5 stars because that's a nice thing to do.